Hey guys, this is Dan. I thought I would make a quick tutorial about the bouncing ball in case our class gets canceled for a snow day, because I saw on my iPhone that like a snow day might happen. Anyway, um, I'm going to put my hands up like this so I have something to bounce the ball on. Ow! 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 Anyway, I'm starting over. That sucked. Let's try again. So on page 7 of the syllabus is the bouncing ball assignment, and it'll be due the next class. And your assignment is to create a bouncing ball animation which demonstrates squash and stretch as taught in class. First, spend a few minutes making your own ball in Photoshop or Illustrator. Be creative. And then you can read this. I'm not going to read it right now, but just know that it's here. And I wanted to show you this sort of bounce. It's pretty low res, but there's a link here that I'm going to click on, and let me just I already opened it. So, and it's this guy, theangryanimator.com, and he's got this really great tutorial, and I think he might be using Flash or hand drawing, but all the principles are the same. Whichever program you end up using, you'll do this sort of thing where you have a motion path and then the ball bouncing, and we're sort of doing this cartoonish squash and stretch just to show you how you can do things like that in After Effects with keyframes. Anyway, so this is like the way you would hand draw it, and they're really good techniques because all the stuff's the same, whether you're doing this in Maya or After Effects or hand drawing it or Flash or whatever. It's all similar stuff. Okay, so let's get started in After Effects. So I'm using After Effects 2017, although you could be doing this in After Effects from the beginning. Anything you could get on your machine, you can basically do this with. And one of the beauties about After Effects is that the interface hasn't really changed. They've changed the way that the panels go together and such, but and they just keep adding to it, but nothing ever goes away. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to say New Project. And then New Comp. And I'm going to make mine half HD. You're welcome to make it at HD, but you'll have to change things. So I'm going to make it 960 by 540, and that's the size that I'll mostly run things at. And I'm just going to run it at 30 frames per second because it's not very long. I'm also going to just start by making this 1 second long. And I can just select this whole duration, by clicking or double clicking, and then just write 1 point, and that means 1 second. And then if I hit OK, then I've created a comp called Comp1 that is 1 second long, not 1 frame, but 1 second. If I wanted to change that composition settings, and I can do, change the size of it, and, the background color, the name. Hey, maybe if I already knew what this was going to be, let's use our proper naming conventions. So let me go last name underscore first name, just go short, dash, and I'll just write bounce 1. And you will do 2 versions of this, like you'll do at least 2 versions of most things in my class. All right, so I've got a container to put it in. I double click it so that it opens. So open up my timeline, and now I'm going to make a ball. And I'm just going to I'm not going to use an Illustrator ball for the demo. I'm not going to use a Photoshop ball, although we'll talk about that later. I'm just going to make a solid, not a custom shape layer, but a solid, because there's more things that we can do with a solid later. So layer, new solid. And mine was 960 by 540, so I'm going to make my solid 150 by 150 pixels. And I'm going to name it ball, and I'm going to make it a color that I can see. So in this case, I'll make it, let's see, I'll just make it white. But let's see, boom. Okay, so there's my ball. I know it looks a little, square, but we're going to hide those square edges with a mask. And so, like most things, I was born a square, and then as I developed in life, I became more round. So I'm going to say layer, mask, new mask, and when you apply a mask to a layer or anything, it basically goes along the alpha channel. So you can see, there's I'm toggling my transparency off and on just to show you that that solid just basically has this yellow mask that goes around the edge. And now I can either toggle this down, or if I remember my key commands, I could just say M or MM to show all the attributes of the mask. And I want to click on where it says shape. I want to change that shape. And if this shape isn't showing, perhaps it's because down here in the bottom left corner you've got this stuff turned off. So at least the first one needs to be going for shape. So I'm going to click on shape, and I'm going to change it from rectangle to an ellipse. And as soon as I say OK, it does. And with this, I'm going to squash and stretch the scale of my ball, and I'm not going to mess with my mask. So I'm going to lock it, and we can always lock it by coming over here and clicking the lock on the mask. And also, if we can't see it because it's hard to see, we can click on the little yellow icon and change it to a color that's more noticeable. So, but again, I'm going to lock it so I won't bump it. What would be bad if I bumped it would be because I could basically do something like that, and then it's not a ball anymore. So Command Z back, lock it, and I will not bump it. Okay, done with the mask for this thing. Okay, so now I would like to set some keyframes. If we look back on, well, it's probably hidden now, but the motion path, we're just going to do a very simple motion path. And so I'm going to set the ball in my first frame right here, and I'm going to tell it its position. And again, I can use the key command P to get position to show. And I'm going to say, hey, on your first frame of this comp, I want you to be right there. And then somewhere in the middle, and I'm just scrubbing, I'll probably change my mind about that later. I'm going to move the ball, and you can see that the little dots of the motion path are there because each one of those is a frame. Bump, 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 bump. All right, so now I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to move it here. Okay, so my bounce is pretty Pongish right now. It's not that exciting. It doesn't really bounce. It just kind of flows through the air like some space ball. All right, so there's a couple things I can start doing. I can start shaping my path with some Bezier handles. They're hard to see, but if I click on one of my keyframes, and I can either click on it here or I can click on it here, then I've got like these handles, and so I can grab these handles and start to shape my path. Now, I kind of want this traditional boing, boing, bounce in and out. But I'm going to have to do something about the bottom keyframe to make that happen. And I'm going to have to break these Bezier handles and make it so that I can control the incoming and the outcoming handle. By default, they want to be kind of round and smooth. That's what Bezier handles are all about. And I can either come up here to the pen tool and change it to this convert vertex tool, which looks like a broken stick. And I can click the handle and break the stick. Now immediately I get rid of that tool because if I touch it again, I can undo it and such. So I immediately go back to my selection tool once that stick is broken, and I have control of the two incoming and outgoing Bezier paths or Bezier, I don't know, curves. So now check out my ball bounce. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was a second ago. Okay. Okay, so the next thing that I could do is I could have some control over, the easing in and easing out. Right now they're very linear. All these are exactly the same distance apart. And just a lazy way would be like to take that first keyframe, right click on it, and say, or I'm going to do it up here so it'll show better. Animation, keyframe assist. No, you can't get there. Animation. I thought I could get there from the bottom. So I'm going to do it from up here, but I will move this up so maybe it'll show better. Right click, keyframe assistant, and tell it to ease out of the parking lot. So it's going slow, you know, gravity, and then it's going to start going fast as it goes down. So I'm easing out of the parking lot. And if we were zoomed in, we could probably see that they got closer together as they would go slow and then further apart as they go far. And I can, again, select the last keyframe. And again, I can select it down from my timeline or in my composition. And I can right-click and say Keyframe Assistant, Ease Out. And again, oops, I wanted to ease in. Keyframe Assistant, Ease In. So I can Command Z undid that. And if we wanted to see how that looked with the graph editor, you know, this is a, you know, it kind of, I don't know, if it works with your brain, this is a perfectly valid way to control it, is to mess this. And for me, I look at the dots up here and the shape of the curve. And there's different ways to interpret this data. This is showing the X and the Y, and probably not the Z. It's probably the Y is green, the red is X, and then the ball position is in white. And you can also come down here to this choose graph type and tell it to so let's see, auto select graph type. I'm not sure which one of those is right. Let's see. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that alone because it's acting differently than I want it to. Okay, anyway, not worrying about it. They've slightly changed my what I'm used to, but that's normal. I'll just get used to it. And I'm just zooming in and out. Okay, so what I look for is like how far apart the dots are, and that's like the speed. So I can kind of like hit the playhead and kind of get a feel for it. If I accidentally deselect all of my points, I'm going to do that on purpose by clicking out here, then everything disappears, and I'm just going to, you know, basically I just need to get back to them. So I could either hit the word position to select them all, or turn my graph off for a minute and grab one of these. Again, the Bezier handles in the composition are controlling the shape of where the ball's bouncing. And the Bezier handles down here in the motion graph are showing like how fast and slow you can have it. So like these are close together up here, then it's going slow, 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 and then fast as it hits the bottom. And I can like crank the crap out of it. I can turn it to 11 to oops, go the other way. Sorry, I thought I heard someone knocking on my door. Pause. I'll have to remember to stop that and cut that out, but we'll see. Maybe I'll forget and there'll just be some dead time. All right, back to it. Okay, so let me play this. Okay, so that's like starting to feel, you know, it's starting to feel a little more interesting. The way that we control this, and then the squashing and stretching, it's all, you know, like what this material is made out of. Like, is the ball made out of rubber, or is it a big heavy bowling ball, or you know, is it a super ball? That's what this is sort of allowing us to do by, you know, messing around with the shape that it falls through the air, and then like how fast it, you know, it falls and stays. It's that classic Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote thing where the Roadrunners, you know, look like Wile E. Coyote's running off the cliff and he goes into the air and his feet are going and he falls really fast and he hits the ground and he squishes. And so we all know this stuff because we watched like way too many cartoons, and you know, Disney has trained us to do squashing and stretching, and control the timing on stuff. Okay, so the next thing that I want to futz around with is I would like to change the shape of my ball. And again, remember I said I'm not going to mess with my mask. I locked that on purpose. But I want to mess around with the maybe my scale. So I want my ball to be round at the top of my arcs. And I want it to be, squished at the bottom. So like if I know I want it to be round there, I could put a keyframe for 100 and 100. And I could Command C that if I wanted to, or I could come over here and hit this make keyframe again. Same thing as pasting the one that I just copied. And so I'm telling it I want it to be round, like it's sort of the top of these arcs. And then when it gets to the bottom, I want it to be squished. And I can either, like zoom in and maybe just grab it and squish it, just grab it and squish it. Or, I mean, I'm a little bit of an anal Virgo, so I like the numbers to be, like equal to 200. So I uncheck my constraint proportion and do something like, 125 and 75. And then I'm going to have to move it down because I want it to be like the bottom of the frame to be as if that was the floor. Okay. All right. So now it's doing the squash thing, but it's not like following the motion path. And there's a little trick that After Effects does because it would be a pain in the butt to have to sort of make it follow this frame by frame. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that. I've done stuff like that before, but there's this sort of automatic auto-orienting that it does. And I can go under, I think it's under Layer, Transform, Auto-Orient. And that basically it makes it sort of follow the path as if its nose was following it and its tail was following it too. So, that, and, oh, this pops up in the wrong part of my screen. Auto-orient along path. Okay. Okay, so now it's auto-orienting around the path, but I need to fix it at the bottom. So that's the downside of auto-orient, but it gets it right for all of the keyframes leading up to it, like till it gets to there, and I've got to fix that. So basically, I'm going to spend a whole bunch of time here at the bottom with my squishing, but I can get it and go, oh, it's so good, it's so close right there. So I'm gonna give it a keyframe for its rotation, I guess. Right there, and then it's so perfect right there, so I'll grab another keyframe, and then down in the very middle, that's where I'm going to have to futz with it and try to fix it, force its hand. Okay, so now it's following the path, hits the ground, squishes, pops back up. Okay, so let's see how that plays. So that with the right sound, might be semi-believable. Okay, that's a bad sound, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that is like a basic bounce. Now, there were some funny things that I showed you the other day with the motion, the motion path, like making your own motion path and stuff. So that might be something to play with too, but this is like, it's great to be able to make something and have a lot of control. So even if you did like a hand-drawn Super Ball motion path, you're still probably going to have to go in and do some squashing and stretching like as it hits the ground or objects in your scene and such. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you was that you can swap out the ball for like other things. Like, so if you have a picture or like Photoshop or Illustrator file, then you can swap that out for the ball. So let me go grab a quick picture here. So let's see. Let's do a search for, I'm always really nervous when I type ball into here. And nothing happened, except I got Lil Wayne. So that wasn't what I was after. What am I in, like iTunes or something? No, let's say. Okay, so luckily it was very rated G, and I've got lots of balls. Okay, so um, I could theoretically find a ball that was exactly 150 by 150 pixels. Otherwise, I'm going to have to change its size in After Effects or Photoshop or some such. If I had a ball without any contours, no shading, then that might be better in a certain way, at least as far as spinning and such goes. So I'm going to pick a very easy ball to start with. Let's take this nice soccer ball. Ooh, look, it's a giant. It's 2400 by 2400 pixels. So I'm going to go there. And I'm not going to go there because I don't want to sign up for anything. I'll go to my tools and I'll say usage rights, labels for non-commercial reviews, modification, and I'm going to, on my size, I'm actually going to go medium. So I'm going to get rid of some of these giant balls. Okay, there's Pixabay, which I think is pretty open source, and there's Wikipedia, which I totally love. So I'm going to go Wikipedia. And this already has an alpha channel. Oh, it's an SVG. SVG. So After Effects will not like SVG. Wait, I just got a text I got to deal with. Pause again. If I can get that pausing working. All right, dealt with. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. SVGs can work for, if I needed to make an SVG work in After Effects, I'd have to open an Illustrator, save it as an AI file, which we can do like on another time. Let's see. Ooh, the yin yang. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay, 615 by 615, public domain. Let's see what we got here. All right, save image as. I'll just stick it on my desktop. Okay, it doesn't have an alpha channel, which is good. We get to talk about more things. I'm going to leave this open in case it doesn't work. So I'm importing that picture. And so I'm going to duplicate my ball because this might look worse than it is, but also just to show you some stuff. So Command D, duplicate, or edit, duplicate. And so here's how it works. I'm going to turn this off for a second, the bottom ball, and because I just duplicated one, that ball also has the same squashing and stretching motion path, alpha channel, everything. I mean, it's got a mask. So I have the ball that I want to replace selected. I'm finding the ball that I want to replace it with in my project bin here, and I'm going to hold my Option key. Now, the Option key is the one between the Command and Control, and I'm going to drag my ball on top, and it will replace it. Now, you can see that it's too big because it's 615 by 615. I really need to make that ball 150 by 150 to work, so I will Command Z, undo that, and I will deal with that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to stick it in a comp, and I'm going to make that composition settings. I'm going to make that comp, 150 by 150, and then I'm going to scale that ball to fit. Let me show you a little trick. You can right-click on the word scale, say Edit Value, tell it that you want it to be, instead of 100%, you can say percentage comp. I love this aspect of After Effects that it does the math for me. Okay, so now my ball is theoretically 100 by 100. I'm going to leave that open for a second. And I'm going to go back to my bounce, and I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm replacing it this time not with a JPEG, but with a comp. So now I could open up that JPEG in Photoshop and scale it down, but let's do it all in After Effects, because some of you have never even touched Photoshop, right? All right, options. I have the ball that I want to replace selected. I have the soccer ball, and I'm holding on my option key. Boom, replace it. Okay, so you can see that it's not quite like right, and I could either scale it up here. S for scale. Yeah, seems about right. Command S. Oops, sorry, didn't mean that. So it's like that. Or I can come here, and because we've already got a mask on there, I can unlock my mask and tell it to expand or contract. So I can tell it to like expand or contract, you know, to make it like the right size. So I'm doing it a little bit down, and I'm actually going to feather it just a tiny bit, you know, just. And you can turn these masks like now my mask is getting in the way with me seeing. So there's a little thing, toggle mask shape right here that I can turn off. So just remember, turn it off and on. See it with that without anything. All right, yeah, no, I kind of like it. Now let's see how that plays. Oh yeah. So that with the right sound. Yeah, I like it. It's really, that ball is really hitting hard, squished. Right, again, with the right sound, that might sell. And then I'm going to actually go to my last keyframe here and move it a bit so it really leaves the stage. Okay, and so I'm going to show you some lazy animation, right? Let's say I spent a lot of time getting this all right. Now I'm going to just kind of like, it's only a second long. Maybe if I want to make it go a little slower or different, I have to change my composition, because right now my whole composition is only a second long. So if I wanted to make this into something, you know, a couple seconds long, composition settings, and I'll just change this from 1 to something else. Remember, I can just select the whole thing and say 3 period, and that's 3 seconds. And so now I've got 3 seconds to play with. And so I'm going to select the ball and just duplicate it a little, because I'm lazy like that. And I'm going to just offset them a little, and then see how that plays. Remember, I can change my work area by either coming over here and scrubbing that, or hitting the end command, which is like set the end of it wherever my playhead is. Okay, so that's like, you know, lazy, but it looks kind of fun. Let me put those a little closer together. I kind of like that. Anyway, another thing that I can do is I can add motion blur to these things, because they have animation going on, and enable motion blur. I'll need to do it at a comp level. So that means for everything in my comp that has a motion blur selected, like right here. And let's see. Let's put this ball on top, and we won't have any motion blur. And let's put motion blur on these balls just for fun. So you can see the difference. Anyway, and I'm going to move them a little bit closer together there. So now they're making like this fake motion. Now I could also just go in there and change the opacity on them too, to sort of like make them into like balls of blur. Just duplicating and offsetting them a frame. Ooh, I like it. The slinky ball. The other fun thing I can do is I could stretch them. Remember, at the bottom left of our timeline is this show and expand these the time. Now, this could mess up where my ball hits, and I'll show you what I mean. But so the ball hits right there, and so let's see. It's probably that one. And so I'm going to, let's turn all of them off except for those two. So I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to scale it and make it go a little bit faster. So let's go make it go like 75%. So what that means is when the ball hits the ground, like I might have missed the frame where it all happens, and I'm going to select it and hit the U key, and then like, we're going to zoom in a little to see. So, you know, like as I scrub it, like my ball never hits the bottom because I stretched it, and so I'll need to do things like go in and you know, jig these around a little bit, make sure that they're landing on a frame. And since the bottom frame was really the only one that particularly mattered, and let me turn motion blur off there, then that's the one, you know, that matters, that I have to kind of pay attention to, at least on something simple like this. So, all right, I think that's enough for now. And like I would like put an interesting background behind it. I would add some sound to it, and I'll upload some student examples, so you, like if you need some inspiration or something. But you know, that's enough for right now. So I'm going to stop the video and see how long